Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name's GBay99, and today I'd like to try something new. One of the most popular forms of content way back in the day when I first started YouTube was the humble gameplay commentary. Videos where a YouTuber would just sit down and chat with their audience, hardly any editing, just an open and honest talk with some gameplay rolling in the background. And today I'd like to bring that back for a chat with you. Recently, I made a video called 5 Vids in 2 Years, where I talked about the wild series of events I'd gone through that resulted in me only making 5 videos these past 2 years. If you haven't seen that video, to summarize, I went from selling my childhood home to moving to a new state to becoming a husband and a father alongside a million health scares in between. The whole experience was so jarring, I felt like I grew a decade older and 100 years more mature across those 2 years of my life. And I came out the other end feeling like I could see a bit more about what really matters in life, which gave me 2 strong desires. The first being I wanted to return to full-time YouTube, but the other, I felt like I wanted to run away from League of Legends. A few years back, I read an interesting article about a movement that was picking up steam on YouTube called the YouTube New Wave. This was a group of smaller creators who were trying to make videos that specifically went against what the algorithm wanted. So that meant they had no clickbait titles, no crazy thumbnails, no engagement tricks to get people to watch all the way to the end. They wanted to basically be the anti-Mr. Beasts, and the videos they made were stupidly good. A lot of these guys were film school dropouts who already had an incredible amount of technical knowledge. They had expensive gear and a background that resulted in them making some really great videos. Frankly, I might say a single frame from any one of their projects was more beautiful than anything I had ever made. Many of their videos didn't do that well at first, since going against the algorithm did hurt once in a while, but a lot of their work blew up regardless. These kids were getting hundreds of thousands of views, if not millions, with a few breaking into the mainstream, because it turns out if you are talented enough, you can blow up on this platform regardless of how much you try to appease the algorithm. I followed this whole saga, reading about the movement at first, and then watching these creators, keeping up with their releases, and it ended with me taking one emotion away from it all, which was fear. Because if these kids are the new creators finding success on YouTube these days, how the hell am I going to compete? Back in the day when I first started my own YouTube channel, it wasn't because I wanted to be a filmmaker. I just wanted to nerd out about my favorite stuff. I grew up watching RuneScape YouTubers and Call of Duty creators and StarCraft commentators who found careers on this site through sharing their passion. So when I was about to graduate high school and had to think about what I was going to do with my future, I made the very wise decision to drop out of college before the first day of classes to start a channel of my own. And against all the odds, it worked out surprisingly well. I have now spent 12 years uploading over 700 videos and getting some 100-odd million views that have sustained a living for me that whole time. But lately, I've been wanting to find some kind of theme that ties it all together. I think if I'm going to find success in this new YouTube landscape, I need to have direction, a thesis statement, if you will, some kind of specific value I provide my audience that they can't get anywhere else, because the competition out there is fierce, and I thought maybe there's some sort of theme that I could discover through researching my channel's history. So I did an autopsy. I looked through all the videos I had made before to try and see if I could find a cohesive strand that linked them all together. My channel originally began with those old League tutorial videos, of course, before I moved into gameplay commentaries, eventually starting my Road to Diamond series. After a while, I became a full-time streamer for a chunk of years, before coming back to YouTube to make video essays and tell stories through documentaries. And throughout every one of those eras of content, I loved making videos. My approach was certainly random, but it was always a joy to work on each and every one of these projects. But looking back on it now, I can kind of see I was mostly just copying creators I liked. I got the idea for League tutorials because I liked watching the StarCraft Day 9 dailies. I made gameplay commentaries because I liked watching Call of Duty commentators like FaZe Rain. I made Road to Diamond because I was a fan of the Road to Glory series in FIFA, and I switched to a full-time streaming career because I liked watching Recful's streams all day. Even when I came back to YouTube to make documentaries, that was largely driven because I liked watching Emplemon, John Boys, and Summoning Salt's content too. I never really had a very strong sense of self, who I was internally, so it's probably no surprise my channel has reflected that. For the most part, I've survived by stealing ideas from wherever I could and trying to apply them to the world of League of Legends, and this certainly has worked in sustaining a career going on 12 years now, but I want to have something more. I don't want to just keep copying people. I want to have direction. I want that thesis statement. There has to be something that ties this all together, and for a while, to my horror, I realized the only obvious factor that's connected it all so far is the game I've played all these years that I keep running away from. It's been a long time since I last played a match of League of Legends myself. The gameplay you've been watching in this video has just been spectator footage from other players. As of now, I haven't played a single game since October of 2020, with the only exception being when I played 2 matches to create a little video about my time away. Other than that, I've been sober from League for going on half a decade. Quitting has almost been like giving up an addiction, in that the siren call to return always remains, but the streak of consecutive days not played stands out as a challenge to see how high I can make that number climb. It doesn't make sense, though, does it, that I keep running away from League of Legends? This is the game that all my viewers subscribe to my channel for. Why am I not engaging with it as closely as I can? That might seem obvious at first. League is a game with plenty of flaws. We all would like to quit sometimes. If you've ever played a match yourself, you don't need me to tell you what can make this title infuriating. Even on a conceptual level, it's kind of a paradox to have this game where it's all about competition. Your rank means more than anything, but there's also just enough RNG variables thrown into the gameplay that half the community is convinced every loss they've ever had is just because of bad teammates. When you're a League YouTuber, these problems are magnified tenfold, because not only do you have to deal with the frustrations of teammates and meta shifts in your games, but you're also at the mercy of League's popularity to sustain your career. If I make great content, even if I make perfect videos that couldn't possibly be better, I am always limited in viewership to how big League's player base is. If Riot made one decision that killed off the esports scene tomorrow, that would kill off a huge chunk of my audience. And it's not like this hasn't happened before. I mean, great StarCraft creators, Overwatch YouTubers, basically anyone attached to a Blizzard game, they have had to go through the perils of corporate nonsense affecting their own livelihoods. That still doesn't totally explain my desires, though. Why do I want to run away from League of Legends? Riot certainly have made missteps, especially recently, and the esports scene always seems to be on death's door, but League is still one of the biggest video games in the world today. A monolith that I could try to cash in on now while the going's still good. Why not make hay while the sun is shining and all that? I think the answer is because I'm kind of scared about how much League has defined my life. A long time ago, Riot's co-founder Mark Merrill had a bit of an angry moment when talking about Reginald, the owner of former LCS org TSM, where Mark said in the heat of an argument that Reggie should just be happy he was able to build a career off the free game Riot made, and not complain so much about whatever issue the esports scene was dealing with at the time. That was rude and dismissive and reductive and just plain not very nice, but honestly, it also wasn't wrong. You can't become a millionaire LCS owner if the LCS doesn't exist, and by that same token, I couldn't find success on YouTube if I didn't find success through League. If you take away the League of Legends and stack up my work to other YouTubers like the New Wave crowd, I think I'm kind of terrible. I mean, I don't have the camera work or the expensive gear. I don't have the film school degree or experience to make something as good as they do. All I have is a weird, obsessive love for League of Legends. It's scary for anyone to wake up one day, and suddenly you're 30 years old, looking back, realizing that you spent the entirety of your 20s dedicated to one video game, a game that made you pretty angry during more than half your time playing it. Hell, that's a scary realization for someone who's just a League player. As a YouTuber, it almost feels worse, because now I'm left with this weird niche skill set. Over the years, I spent so much time ranting about top lane balance changes and Riot and whatever. I got pretty good at it, but that's not exactly a transferable skill that you can take to other industries. I think that is partly why I wanted to run, because I thought that I had no real skills. I was scared that other up-and-coming creators were going to come take my spot. They had talent and were able to make content I had no clue how to even attempt making, so when Carpal Tunnel sidelined me from playing League, that was the push that I needed to run away from the game and go learn some skills. Starting in 2020, I've been spending most of my days reading, learning whatever I could about filmmaking and writing and storytelling and every part of the craft of making movies. Eventually, this even led to some opportunities to work in the actual film industry, and I dove in head first because I wanted to have that kind of quality in whatever I made. I hoped that one day I too could make things that were so good, even if I completely went against the algorithm, they would blow up regardless. That's a tall task, but I think at the very least, I did learn how to make some pretty good videos. Recently, I started releasing some new content, including the 5 Vids in 2 Years project, as well as a little documentary about my family's history and a trip to Scotland, where I explicitly didn't mention League of Legends as much as I could. I was testing to see how well I could tell a non-League story, and you know what? I would say they turned out pretty good. They don't have crazy views or anything, but people who watched seemed to like them. Or at the very least, saw something there, maybe some potential, giving me hope that maybe I could have a future on YouTube outside of League. But then, after proving to myself I could maybe move beyond this game, I got the sudden urge to make an old school League of Legends gameplay commentary. I found that thesis statement I was looking for, by the way, the strand that connects all my content together, from the tutorials to the gameplay to the documentaries and all that. There is one idea across my channel that's always been there, which is a theme about being better. Or if you want to put it in fancier terms, my channel has always been about finding some sort of spiritual fulfillment in the weird digital age we're living through. That's what tutorials were, guides on how you could get better at League, so you could hopefully find some fulfillment in putting in the work to see yourself rise in rating. That's also what Road to Diamond was, a series where I chronicled my own real-time journey of trying to work towards achieving something I'd never done. That's even what the documentaries were, celebrating other great people who managed to beat the impossible odds they faced and accomplish things that I hope they found fulfilling. Learning how to make real videos also ended up being quite fulfilling for me. Learning how to tell a story, how to make a movie, all that jazz. It was really fun developing those skill sets, and I'm proud of myself that I've come so far in my journey as a creator. I am no longer a little teenage nerdy boy trying to make his voice sound deeper as he talks about League. I don't exactly know what the future holds. Riot could turn into Blizzard tomorrow and kill League of Legends, which might effectively still end my career, and I feel like I need to prepare myself to take my YouTube channel in whatever direction it needs to go if I'm going to give my daughter a good life. But all that being said, for better or worse, I don't think I'm ready to totally give up on League yet. Talk about fulfilling, League has been there as one of the most fulfilling games I have ever played. I have never been so stressed or angry or frustrated by a video game before in my life, and the fulfillment that comes from working through all those negative emotions to accomplish something, that is still unmatched for me in the world of gaming. So as long as League is around, I think I should try to stick around with it too, at least in some part. I actually really liked doing things like making this video. This was a nostalgia trip for me. I don't know if any of you were around back in 2010, 2011 League YouTube, but this kind of content was always some of my favorite back in the day. Maybe it'll just be a once-in-a-blue-moon thing, but I would love to do more gameplay commentaries like this, where we just play a match and chat about life. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more. But maybe this kind of content died on YouTube for a reason. Maybe I should put a bit more effort into continuing to polish my filmmaking craft, because it really is impressive what people are making on this site these days, and I feel like I'm in a constant arms race to keep up. Either way, though, I hope I can stay on this site alongside everyone for as many years as you'll have me. So with that note, I think it's only appropriate to end this classic video with a classic sign-off. If you're still listening now, thank you very much for watching. Good luck in solo queue, and have a wonderful day.